1956, a garage somewhere in Middle America. Snow presses softly against the windows while an old radio hums in the corner. A father leans over the hood of a truck with grease on his hands while his son stands nearby, holding a flashlight that keeps slipping in his frozen fingers. Nobody calls this mentorship. Nobody calls it personal development. It is simply life. And without realizing it, that boy is learning something modern life has slowly stopped teaching men altogether. There was a time when nearly every man understood that life would eventually demand something from him. Not entertainment, not endless consumption, but capability. The world before 1970 expected men to become useful long before they ever felt fully ready. Boys grew up understanding that one day they would need to solve problems, repair things, remain calm during hardship, provide stability for others, and carry responsibility without constantly searching for comfort or reassurance. These expectations were rarely written down. They were absorbed quietly through daily life. A boy standing beside his father while repairing a truck learned something deeper than mechanics. A teenager stacking wood before winter learned more than labor. A young man working beside older co-workers in a factory, on a farm, or in a workshop learned how adults handled pressure, mistakes, and responsibility. Many of the traits men once considered basic have almost disappeared from modern life. And with them disappeared a certain kind of confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you can handle difficult situations without panicking. The kind that comes from experience instead of appearance. The kind that cannot be purchased, downloaded, or imitated online. Today, we're looking at 18 vanished traits nearly every man once knew before 1970. And why losing them changed modern life far more than most people realize. But before we begin, if forgotten lessons from the past still matter to you, if you believe quiet strength, capability, and character still deserve respect, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who understands what modern life may have quietly erased. Now let's begin. Number 18, the expectation of usefulness. 1952. A fence collapses after heavy rain. Nobody searches for a tutorial. Nobody waits for customer support. Somebody grabs tools and starts fixing it. That was normal life. Families depended on each other because daily life required maintenance, labor, and problem solving. If a roof leaked, someone repaired it. If the car stopped running, someone opened the hood and figured out what went wrong. There was very little room for helplessness because survival itself depended on competence. Many boys grew up watching older men solve problems directly instead of avoiding them. They watched fathers repair engines in freezing weather. They watched grandfathers sharpen tools slowly in garages filled with oil, sawdust, and metal. They learned that capable men did not collapse when problems appeared. They started working through solutions. Those experiences built more than skills. They built confidence. Every successful repair reinforced a powerful belief. Problems can be solved. Number 17. Emotional control under pressure. 1943. A storm pounds against a farmhouse roof in the middle of winter. The power is gone. The children are frightened. Water leaks through the ceiling, and somewhere in the middle of the chaos, one man remains calm. Earlier generations deeply respected that kind of steadiness. Many older generations lived through depression, war, dangerous jobs, and constant uncertainty. Comfort was not guaranteed. Stability was not guaranteed. As a result, men learned quickly that panic rarely improved difficult situations. A father trying to feed his family during hardship could not afford emotional collapse. A mechanic working around dangerous machinery needed calm concentration. This did not mean men felt no fear. It meant they learned to function despite fear. A steady man became valuable because his presence reduced panic in everyone around him. Not loudest, not the most emotional, calmest. Today, constant stimulation makes emotional control far more difficult. Endless notifications, outrage, and distraction train the nervous system to remain overstimulated almost constantly. But many older men lived in long stretches of silence. They worked quietly, drove quietly, thought quietly, and because of that, many developed stronger concentration naturally. Number 16. Mechanical understanding. 1961. A teenager listens carefully to an engine that refuses to start. Beside him, an older mechanic says only a few words. Listen to the sound. Before computerized systems controlled everyday life, machines were simpler, but they required constant maintenance. Cars overheated, belts snapped, tools wore out. Men were expected to understand at least the basics of how mechanical systems functioned. Many boys learned naturally by standing nearby while repairs happened. They watched older men diagnose problems carefully. Listen to the engine, check for leaks, tighten loose connections, pay attention to sound. This process trained observation, and observation gradually became intuition. Experienced men often recognized problems before complete failure occurred because they learned to notice small changes early. That lesson extended far beyond machinery. Pay attention to warning signs, handle small problems before they become disasters. Stay alert. Earlier generations gained confidence through repeated exposure to failure and repair. Engines refused to start. Repairs went badly, mistakes happened constantly, but repeated problem-solving built resilience, and resilience built self-trust. Number 15. Patience. Before life moved at the speed of notifications, men learned to wait. 1950. A man sits alone on a porch after sunset. No phone in his hand, no noise filling the silence, just wind moving through distant trees while tomorrow's work waits patiently in the morning. Before 1970, nearly everything moved more slowly. Letters took days to arrive. Saving money took years. Learning skills requires repetition instead of instant tutorials. Earlier generations understood that mastery happened slowly. Woodworking required patience. Farming required patience. Raising families required patience. This slower pace shaped personality itself. Many men developed stronger tolerance for boredom, frustration, repetition, and delayed gratification because daily life constantly demanded those qualities. Older generations often spent long periods alone with their thoughts, long drives without entertainment, fishing quietly for hours, working silently in garages. That comfort with stillness strengthened focus and emotional stability. Number 14. Reading people. 1964. A father pauses before introducing his son to another man at the hardware store. Look him in the eye. Shake hands firmly. Speak clearly. Those small details mattered. Before smartphones and digital communication, face-to-face interaction dominated everyday life. Men spent enormous amounts of time around co-workers, neighbors, tradesmen, and strangers in physical spaces. Social awareness mattered deeply. A handshake communicated confidence. Posture communicated discipline. Eye contact communicated sincerity. Many fathers corrected these details constantly. Stand straight, speak clearly, do not interrupt. And because communities were smaller and more connected, reputation mattered enormously. A dishonest action could spread quickly. A careless word could follow someone for years. Many men understood that trust took a long time to build and only moments to destroy. Number 13. Learning through observation. 1957. A teenage boy quietly watches an older man repair a fence in complete silence. No lecture, no step-by-step explanation. And somehow, that was enough. Earlier generations often learned by watching experienced adults work quietly. A boy helping repair a fence learned patience, tool handling, and problem-solving without formal lessons. A teenager working beside older men in a garage learned discipline simply by observing standards. Watch carefully. Pay attention. Notice mistakes. Learn through repetition. This style of learning built independence because younger men became accustomed to figuring things out gradually instead of demanding constant explanation. Many older generations believed competence came from experience more than theory. Number 12. Reliability. 1962. A truck pulls into a muddy driveway before sunrise. Nobody sent reminders. Nobody checked location updates. A man simply said he would show up. And he did. Earlier generations placed enormous importance on keeping your word. If someone promised to arrive at 6 o'clock, they arrived. If someone borrowed tools, they returned them properly. If someone agreed to help during harvest season, they showed up. Reliability created trust within families and communities. A reliable man earned respect slowly through consistency, not through appearance, not through status, through repeated action over time. Older generations understood that consistency reveals character more clearly than speeches ever will. Number 11. Physical toughness. 1948. A factory whistle sounds before sunrise. Men step into freezing air already exhausted from yesterday's labor. And nobody expects comfort. Many men before 1970 lived demanding physical lives. Factory work destroyed joints. Farm labor required endurance from sunrise until darkness. Military service remained common. People tolerated discomfort more often because they had no alternative. This constant exposure to hardship changed their relationship with difficulty itself. Many men learned to continue functioning even while tired, cold, frustrated, or uncomfortable. Over time, that built emotional endurance. Earlier generations often believed character revealed itself most clearly during difficult moments. Anyone could remain calm when conditions were easy. The real test happened during hardship. Number 10. Repairing instead of replacing. 1955. A pair of worn work boots sits on a wooden bench beside carefully arranged tools. Instead of throwing them away, someone repairs them. That was normal. Before disposable culture took over, repairing objects was expected. Shoes were resoled, furniture was restored, engines were rebuilt, tools were sharpened repeatedly. People valued things more deeply because maintaining them required effort. Many men developed pride in extending the life of equipment through skill and patience. But the deeper lesson behind repair was never really about objects. It was about refusing helplessness. Number 9. Practical conversation. 1960. Men gather quietly inside a small-town barber shop while snow falls outside. Stories move slowly across the room between hair clippers, coffee cups, and long pauses. And hidden inside those conversations was wisdom. Earlier generations spent enormous amounts of time talking face to face. Men gathered in garages, diners, workshops, hunting camps, and union halls. Stories were exchanged constantly. A younger man might learn financial discipline from listening to older workers discuss mistakes they made decades earlier. A veteran might quietly explain lessons learned during service. A mechanic might teach troubleshooting through storytelling instead of instruction manuals. Today, information is everywhere, but wisdom often requires lived experience. Earlier generations respected experience deeply because they understood that many lessons can only be learned slowly. Number 8. Situational awareness. Earlier generations paid attention constantly because reality demanded it. Road conditions mattered, weather mattered, equipment condition mattered. A distracted worker around heavy machinery could be seriously hurt instantly. A distracted driver on icy roads could cause tragedy. As a result, many men learned to scan environments automatically. Notice exits, watch the weather change, listen for unusual sounds, pay attention to the tension between people. This awareness often became instinctive over time. Today, many people move through life distracted by phones, headphones, and constant stimulation. But earlier generations trained awareness naturally because reality itself demanded it. Number 7. Delayed gratification. 1953. A man folds cash carefully into a small envelope marked Truck Fund. It may take years before he can finally afford it, and he accepts that completely. Before easy credit became widespread, people saved money patiently for major purchases. Cars required years of planning. Homes required sacrifice. Tools were purchased carefully. Nothing happened instantly. Many boys grew up understanding that wanting something did not guarantee immediate access to it. You worked, you saved, you waited. Older generations often expected worthwhile achievements to require effort and patience. That expectation made setbacks easier to tolerate because the struggle itself felt normal. Number 6. Craftsmanship. 1966. A carpenter studies a nearly invisible imperfection in a wooden table nobody else would ever notice. And still, he fixes it. Many men before 1970 cared deeply about doing work correctly, even when nobody else would notice mistakes. Straight cuts mattered, clean welds mattered, precise measurements mattered. A man's work represented his character. This belief encouraged patience, discipline, and pride in competence. Today, speed often matters more than quality. But older generations admired careful workmanship because it demonstrated seriousness and self-respect. Number 5. Humility around competence. 1951. A small-town mechanic wipes grease from his hands after rebuilding an engine that nobody else could fix. The customer thanks him repeatedly. The mechanic simply nods and says, "Glad we got it running." No speech, no performance. Many highly skilled men from earlier generations rarely bragged about their abilities. The best mechanic in town often spoke quietly. The strongest worker rarely demanded attention. Earlier generations believed ability should reveal itself naturally through actions instead of self-promotion. The man who remained steady without constantly announcing his value usually earned the deepest respect, because real competence rarely needs to advertise itself. Number 4. Mentorship between generations. 1963. A teenage boy sweeps the floor inside a machine shop while older men work nearby. Sparks fly through the dim light. Metal clangs against concrete. Nobody formally explains every lesson, but the boy is learning constantly. Boys once spent far more time around adult men in practical environments. Workshops, garages, construction sites, farms. Responsibility transferred naturally through observation and repetition. Older men corrected mistakes directly, showed standards through example, expected effort and improvement. Today, many younger men grow up separated from experienced adults. Screens replaced workshops, algorithms replaced conversations, entertainment replaced observation, and when mentorship disappears, practical confidence often disappears with it. Because confidence is often borrowed first, before it is eventually built internally. Number 3. Adaptability. Earlier generations faced unstable conditions constantly. Economic downturns, harsh weather, war, limited resources. As a result, many men learned improvisation naturally. Repair instead of replace. Reuse materials. Find creative solutions. Make things work with limited tools. Adaptability became survival. Earlier generations understood that life rarely unfolded exactly as planned. Machinery failed unexpectedly. Jobs disappeared. Supplies became unavailable. So men learned flexibility through necessity. This adaptability built resilience because men became accustomed to uncertainty. But improvisation often develops confidence faster than comfort ever can. Number 2. Responsibility at an early age. 1954. A 14-year-old boy wakes before sunrise to help during harvest season before school begins. Nobody describes this as extraordinary. It is simply expected. Many boys before 1970 worked young. They contributed financially, handled real obligations, worked summer jobs, assisted during harvest seasons. Responsibility accelerated maturity because consequences felt real. Animals still needed feeding. Bills still needed paying. Work still needed finishing. Earlier generations believed responsibility itself shaped character. The more people depended on you, the more disciplined you became. Because responsibility forces difficult growth. Confidence is rarely built through comfort alone. It is built by carrying weight successfully. Number 1. Quiet self-trust. 1967. A man changes a tire alone on the side of an empty road late at night. No audience, no validation, no performance, just competence. And perhaps that was one of the most important vanished traits of all. Many older men remained calm without constant validation. They repaired engines alone, worked quietly, handled responsibilities without documenting every achievement publicly. This created internal confidence instead of performance-based confidence. A capable man did not need everyone to constantly acknowledge his competence because his confidence came from experience. This quiet self-trust also came from comfort with silence. Fishing trips included silence. Road trips included silence. Workshops included silence. Silence allowed reflection. And reflection improved judgment. It also came from practical independence, changing tires, repairing leaks, sharpening tools, maintaining vehicles, handling emergencies. This practical competence created self-respect because men trusted themselves. Earlier generations expected tasks to be difficult sometimes. Engines failed repeatedly. Repairs took hours. Farming involved uncertainty. Hard labor caused exhaustion. People became accustomed to continuing despite frustration. That persistence created resilience. Most worthwhile achievements involve repeated failure before success. Quiet self-trust also came from emotional restraint, not suppressing all feelings completely, but learning when emotional reactions improved situations and when they made situations worse. Calmness created authority. And finally, quiet self-trust came from usefulness. Earlier generations built identity around contribution, providing stability, repairing problems, helping neighbors, teaching younger generations. This usefulness created purpose. The truth is, most of these vanished traits were never really about engines, tools, repairs, or physical labor. They were about becoming dependable. Earlier generations believed a capable man should remain steady during hardship, be useful to others, work through discomfort, and face problems directly instead of avoiding them. No generation was perfect. Older generations carried flaws and hardships of their own. But many of the habits men once developed naturally created resilience that modern life sometimes struggles to replace. And maybe that's why so many people today feel drawn toward these forgotten traits. Not because they want to live in the past, but because they miss what these traits created. The feeling of capability, the feeling of usefulness, the feeling of self-respect earned through competence, the feeling of knowing that when life becomes difficult, you can remain calm, think clearly, and handle what's in front of you. Because confidence was never supposed to come from appearances. It came from experience, from responsibility, from becoming dependable when life became hard. And perhaps that quiet confidence is one of the most valuable things modern life quietly erased. But it may also be one of the most important things worth rebuilding. So tonight, somewhere out there, another father is teaching a son how to fix something in silence. Another young man is learning patience through hard work. Another person is slowly discovering that real strength is often quiet, steady, and useful. And maybe these vanished traits are not completely gone after all. Maybe they are simply waiting to be remembered. If this video reminded you of something worth holding on to, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we uncover the forgotten skills, habits, values, and ways of life that quietly built stronger people before modern life replaced them. And if there's a vanished trait, tradition, or life lesson you think the world forgot, leave it in the comments below. Because some of the most important knowledge we have left is still passed from one person to another.